Well, hello everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to part two of Business as Unusual Talks. My name is Aditya, I'm an analyst for DuContra Ventures. So given that today is the 50th annual Earth Day, DuContra Ventures, Adrian's impact fund, thought it would be awesome to kind of engage with companies that we are invested in, passionate about, and are really just committed to doing business during such an unparalleled time. Today I have the opportunity to speak with three amazing individuals, Adrian Ganay, Sarah Paigio, and Bobby Burke. Adrian, if you want to introduce yourself, followed by Sarah, followed by Bobby.
Yes, well, hi, I'm Adrian Grenier, actor, but more importantly, a lover of the environment and animals. And I've done a lot of work over the years to help rid the world of plastic and help inspire people to live a more conscientious lifestyle. And that's what DuContra Ventures is an opportunity to support companies that are doing just that.
Awesome. Hi guys, I'm Sarah Paigio. I'm co-founder and CEO of Blueland. With Blueland, we are on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic packaging, and we are starting with cleaning products. And how our products work right now, we have a set of cleaning sprays and hand soaps. And what we've done is that we've shrunk down these traditional products that are like 90% plus liquid, and we've shrunk them down to these tablets that come packaged in paper. And our system comes with these reusable, refillable bottles so that you can simply, when you need more product, you can simply fill up one of your bottles with warm water, drop in a tablet, and at the end of a few minutes, you have a full bottle of solution, meaning that you never have to buy or throw away another plastic cleaning bottle ever again.
Bobby?
Hi, I am Bobby Burke. I'm the interior designer on Queer Eye and an environmentalist. I'm always looking for new and exciting companies to help promote and to get the word out on, and that's what's happening today with Blueland. I came across them on Instagram recently and loved the idea. For years, I've been wishing there was a company out there that literally just made a little tablet you could just put in the bottle and you wouldn't have to buy all the plastic bottles anymore. And on Adrian's Instagram, there I saw it, and I'm like, yes! So this is a very new friendship, but one that I've been waiting for years.
Yeah. Well, and these are the kind of friendships that are rooted in like values, so they're long lasting.
Great, thank you guys. So the format of the talk would be the following. We're going to spend about 30 minutes of a fireside chat with three of them with some questions from my end. 15 minutes, depending on how much time we have left, we'll do some audience Q&A. And then for the final 5 minutes, Sarah and Blueland actually gave us 5 Blueland Clean Essential kits to give away. So stick around for that if you want a chance to win one of those. With that, I'm just going to dive straight into it. Sarah, where did the motivation or spark come from the idea for the idea of Blueland? And Adrian and Bobby, if you guys want to follow on, when did you both first encounter the brand, and what was the initial impressions of the company as well as the overall mission?
Yeah, I mean, the idea for Blueland came about like completely organically. My co-founder John and I, we weren't out on the search for an idea, and it actually started when I became a new mom. My son just turned 3, and I had breastfed him for like 11 months. It was like the hardest thing I'd ever done, and I was finally switching him over to formula, which is typically a mixture of powder and water. And so I was doing a ton of research around what kind of water I should use. And I was even questioning, like, is tap water clean? Should I use bottled water? And I was pretty horrified to learn that, regardless of, whether you're using tap or bottled, that, our drinking water contains hundreds of pieces of these microplastics. And that's when I started to just like make the connection between like, all this plastic that we're consuming, the society is ending up in our waterways and our oceans. And now it's showing back up in our food and the water in the formula that I was making my son. And so at that point, I just made a decision to cut back on my own plastic consumption. And it was a very interesting journey because as really well intentioned as I was, I realized I just had no choice. Right? Like, you go to a grocery store, you go to a retailer, and just like everything seems to come packaged in single-use plastic. Not just cleaning products, but like ketchup or lotion or really anything. And yeah, that's when I decided that, we could have so much greater impact beyond just our personal consumption if there was a way that we could provide consumers with more choice. And so that's kind of how the idea for Blueland really came about.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah, I just have to say, I'm so thankful that you created Blueland. I consider myself like an environmental bloodhound, always trying to sniff out the next thing that I can use, not only personally for my own lifestyle, but also from a business perspective. How are we going to, in a capitalist system, how are we going to find those business solutions to environmental problems? Because people do need to keep clean, right? So how are we going to bring them an opportunity to do that, and change the paradigm and sort of replace old models with new models? So when discovering Blueland, it was like breath of fresh air, because it's something that as an environmentalist, I'm like always looking to replace certain things, and Blueland take care of a set of them.
For me, it was very exciting to see, because every time I go to the store and I feel like, and you can use the word forced, to have to buy something that's in plastic because there's just really no other alternatives. Throughout the years, I've seen the companies come in, and instead of the big, let's give Tide, for example, instead of the big plastic laundry detergent holder, they've come out with the small, like, plastic bag refillable ones, which was a nice step, but it was still plastic. And I feel plastics that even became less reusable and less recyclable, and ending up in landfills and ending up in the ocean. And so discovering Blueland was very exciting to me, because again, I'd gotten to where I almost wasn't buying cleaning products, which might not necessarily be a good thing, just because I didn't want to be buying that plastic that I knew I was just going to throw away. And like, I had like this whole box full of bottles that I was never going to do anything with, but I just couldn't bring myself to like throw them away, because I'm like, I know they're not going to get recycled. So finding this was great, because it's good to see a company that is not just thinking of in the now. There's so many companies out there that are like, oh, we're just going to think of the now. We're just going to think about making as much money as we can right now, and not thinking about the fact that if we don't change something, there's not going to be customers in the future to buy our products, because the whole freaking world's going to be gone. So to see those companies that are thinking not of their bottom line fully, but of the bottom line of humanity, is really great to see. And I hope a lot of other companies can start taking note of Blueland and figuring out ways that they can also reduce their plastics in other ways. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, guys. So Adrian, you kind of touched upon this, but kind of as an impact-driven investor, you are seeing ventures such as Blueland thrive and consequently receive high returns by staying genuine to your own values and just staying genuine to overall environmental values. Do you see this as a shifting moment as it relates to venture capital, where supporting eco-conscious brands acts to generate returns beyond average?
Absolutely. I think if in a true capitalist system, it's always the more efficient and the better businesses that will win out in the end. Sometimes that's a slow transition, but right now more than ever, especially with the time we're in with this pandemic, you're going to see that people are waking up a lot faster, and they're going to start putting their energy towards companies that are going to not only prevent certain environmental and health pandemics and disasters, but are also going to help to reverse them and correct them in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at the plastic problem in the ocean, I mean, that's essentially a global pandemic happening over a very, very long time. And so once we reach a certain tipping point in the ocean, it's going to be something we're not going to be prepared for. We couldn't be prepared for. So this lesson right now is, I think, informing where our investments are going to start heading, and where the winners are going to be in the end in that new business model.
Yeah. You mentioning that the pollution problem, the plastic problem, is a pandemic. I was reading an article about India last night, and I had recently been there before coronavirus, and the level of pollution there it's literally stifling. One day I was looking at my iPhone of the weather for that day, and the weather literally said smoke, which I didn't realize that smoke was a weather condition.
Oh
but apparently in India it is. But seeing this week pictures of New Delhi and Mumbai and the clear skies and the clear, I forget the name of the city, but there's lakes everywhere, and all the lakes recently have just been filled with foam from the pollution and the runoff of the factories. And I'm really hoping that this will kind of be a wake-up call, because 2.6 million people a year die in India alone from pollution. You know, COVID-19 has killed thousands and thousands of people, and it's been horrible. But if you think about the fact that the pollution pandemic, 2.6 million people in one country alone in 1 year, I hope that people seeing, you know, again, using India as an example, I hope that people there who see how beautiful the air and how clean the water can be will really take a step back and use this as a sounding board to be like, you know what, no, what we were dealing with before, that's not acceptable. Like, we see how clean the world can be. We need to fight to make sure that this continues and that we don't go back to the way we were.
Sarah, just to bring, oh, Adrian, did you have anything to add?
No, well, I mean, I was going to say that, you know, that's why we're calling this series business as unusual, because the last thing we want to do is go back to business as usual.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to go back to normal. We want to go back to what is the new inspiration for what's possible.
Yeah, and that ties perfectly into my next question for Sarah. As someone who wears the hat of a founder as a CEO, how can you continue to capitalize on the shift for green products to target the impact-driven investor like Adrian and the conscious consumer and retailer like Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big one for sure for investors is, you know, highlighting that this is not a trend, right? Like, this is a movement and it's here to stay. You know, personally, I've been so encouraged by all the incredible momentum, you know, whether it's big businesses like Starbucks phasing out their straws, or, you know, countries all over the world, whole countries like Canada, you know, countries across the EU, even China, Thailand, making sweeping changes to ban single-use plastic, to all the great, you know, momentum we've seen finally here in the States and cities with the plastic bag bans and the straw bans, et cetera. And I really don't think we're going to as consumers, unsee that everything that we've learned to date. I do think that we are at a tipping point, and, you know, certainly there's a lot of us out there, Adrian, Bobby, you know, Blueland, that will do everything that we can to ensure that, you know, this truly does become the new normal going forward. You know, I think a big responsibility that we have as businesses, and a good thing for investors to look out for, is just, you know, also wearing the hat of, how can we make it easier for consumers to want to do the right thing? You know, with Blueland, it took us about 2 years to get this product to market, because, you know, we had certain standards that we really wanted to make sure we hit, because we thought it was so important to be able to maximize our impact and maximize like mass adoption. Some of those being, you know, like eco-friendly products, you know, have this, you know, bad reputation of where consumers assume it's going to be more expensive, more work, less effective, at least for cleaning products. And, you know, for us from the very beginning, we were like, we're not going to launch a cleaning product unless we can prove in third-party studies that we can outperform the leading comparable brands. And the other one that was really important to us was, you know, how do we come out with a system that was ultimately money-saving? And so that's where, you know, the $2 tablets was an important component to what we provide, because we want to give, you know, people that incentive and show like, look, it's don't go out and pay for 90% water and a new plastic bottle when you can just get a $2 tablet and actually save money, you know, while you're also, you know, helping us save the planet.
Bobby, you briefly mentioned COVID-19. You know, for all of you, it's difficult to not acknowledge the impact COVID-19 has played for the global economy, businesses of all industries, of all markets. So to that extent, how do you feel that COVID-19 will act to shift consumer and producer behavior in the months and years to come, specifically as it has to do with eco-conscious behavior and then also consumption in general?
I mean, honestly, I hope it has a huge impact. You know, people for years have talked about, oh, if we, you know, commuted more, it would make the air better. And if we just did this and we just did that, but no one really saw it. It's like when you're working out and you know, you don't really see any changes because it happens a little at a time. And so people then just give up. One of the things I hope that this horrible issue of COVID-19 creates is for people to literally see, wow, if we really do start driving electric more, if we really do start commuting more, look how clean the air can be. Look how clean the waterways can be. I hope it really helps people instantly see how little changes can help. I know a lot of times people will just, for example, a water bottle. Oh, it's just a water bottle. I'm just one person. There's 34 million people in California. If every day, every single person said, oh, it's just a water bottle, it's 34 million water bottles every single day. So I hope it makes people take pause and really think about their impact. Because we've got so much time on our hands, we should be thinking a lot. And also the way you buy plastics. I ordered a protein powder brand that I usually always order, and I've never really thought much of it, but I opened up a new jar yesterday, and I noticed, the jar was this big, and it had this much product in it. And it pissed me off. I was like, not only are you trying to just make it look like we're getting more when we're not, but you're using twice the amount of plastics that you need for that amount of product. You could create 2 packages out of that single-use plastic. So I hope that, again, moments like this where normally I wouldn't have thought anything of it, I'd be doing that really quick before I was going to work, I wouldn't think anything of it. Right now, got a little more time to literally sit there and stare at packaging. So yeah, I hope that's what it helps us with, is really taking the time to think about all the things that we use in our day-to-day life that are either unnecessary or could be better if we just searched out the right company who gave a damn. Yeah, that's all.
Sarah, Adrian, you guys want to add anything?
Well, I feel like this is a beautiful opportunity for all of us. It's a rock bottom. We've hit a pause button, and now we can all, come out of this, reemerge with a learning, with an education, and let's not waste it. So absolutely, it's what we make of it. If we just want to bury our heads in the sand and pretend like things are going to go back the way they were, then all of this was for naught. And so let's do that. Let's take this time to reflect, go inside, have a moment of introspection and decision making, so that when we do reemerge, we're in more harmony with what our true values are, and we're not just jumping on the hamster wheel as capitalism would want us to just be blind consumers and conditioned to just do things because it's in their best interest. But instead, let's manifest a world that is in our best interest.
Totally. I mean, as whole industries right now, from like fashion to luxury to travel, as these are crumbling, I think that, yeah, it's really such an opportunity for us to reevaluate, figuring out what's worth rebuilding and how do we just be really active participants in that, especially just as consumers, making more conscious decisions, like Bobby said, on what we want to purchase, how we want to live, and really voting with our actions and our dollars. I mean, I heard something really encouraging yesterday about, how much fast fashion is actually down, and how much like dressing, outfit buying for Instagram is down. And I think that's great, because I think as we, rush back to this normal, it's a good opportunity to think about what parts of normal are worth rushing back to, and how do we feel at the moment now that we're all, wearing sweats and no shoes every day, those are parts of our life that we really, really need.
I'm shorting my razor stock.
Exactly. You don't need all those plastic razors. You're good.
No.
Cool. Now, generally speaking, though, a majority of companies have lobbied against environmental reform, because it might end up hurting their bottom line. So how should companies balance profit-maximizing incentives and environmentally conscious behaviors, as the two may act inversely at times?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I have a lot of thoughts on that. I think it's interesting. I just feel like since the 1970s and the Milton Friedman, I have a lot of thoughts on that. There's been it's become conventional wisdom that the sole end goal of a business is to maximize shareholder value and maximize profits, with no responsibility to the public or our communities. But it really makes you wonder, but why? Like, I do think a company's responsibility should be so much broader than that, certainly to its customers, to its employees, to communities, and of course the planet. And kind of like Bobby alluded to, I mean, there are no products and there are no customers if there is no planet. And so I do think that, certainly hopefully, 2020 is a decade where businesses are starting to reevaluate, how they think about sort of their ultimate objectives. And there's been good momentum. David, I think from BlackRock, wrote a fantastic piece that's resonated with a lot of business leaders about just the importance of considering other stakeholders outside of investors and prioritizing the bottom line. But I think ultimately, I think it's also just coming up with solutions where the environment and what's good for business don't have to be at odds with each other. Like I mentioned, I think like with Blueland, it absolutely is better for business in a world that's increasingly driven by e-commerce. It does not make sense to be shipping around hundreds of millions of gallons of water, right? Whether it's from the manufacturers to our stores, or from the from warehouses shipped to our homes. And our products are 300 times lighter, 200 times smaller than a bottle of liquid, and so it's 30 times cheaper to ship. And so there really is a structural cost advantage. And of course, I would really encourage those ways to get the cost down versus there's other oppressive or toxic means of production that can also bring costs down. But I think businesses should certainly challenge ourselves to be more creative and innovative, to find mutually beneficial solutions.
Yeah, and it's a false choice as well. This idea that you have to choose between the environment or the bottom line. There's something about money that is skewed, right? It's this sort of placeholder for value, but what is real value? If you look around, and what do we really value? Is it money, our bank account? Is it dollars, or is it human experiences? Is it health and wellness? Is it the environment? Is it the sunset and the clean ocean? I mean, what are our values? And over time, certain people, businesses have skewed what we value in this society because of fundamental, I think, greed and the desire to manipulate and win in this particular system. But if you're a true capitalist, I think you're looking at more modest returns, but actually looking to create real value for your shareholders, for your customers. Value not being dividends and money and 10x plus returns, but real true value for society. And that's what companies. That's why people start companies. There's a need that needs to be met, and create value for people. And so I think we're gonna have a big transformation now and go back to a truer sense of what capitalism is, instead of just this endless growth and accumulation mentality, but really looking at having something a little bit more honest and pure, and not propping up a lot of industries that should have failed a long time ago, and not propping up corporate America that hasn't been creating that kind of value for humans in a long time, and have this false sort of idea that they're so necessary that we can't let them fail. So I'm all for a pure capitalism and like investing in new novel innovation instead of like old dinosaurs that frankly are on their way out.
And I also think a big key to that is, speaking of old dinosaurs, is taking care of the environment with your vote. If we continue to vote for politicians who, to be really blunt, don't give a damn about the environment, because they're probably only got a good 20 years left on the planet anyways. To vote for people who really give a damn about the environment because it personally affects them. They've got a good, 10 more, not 10 decades. Maybe if we get the planet in order, maybe we will all live that long. But, they've got decades more to worry about themselves and their kids. So to be putting politicians in place who have a personal stake in our environmental situation getting better is a really, really important thing as well. Because if we get the right politicians in office that care about the environment, they're going to be way more apt to keep those companies who don't in check.
Thank you guys for sharing. For the sake of time, this would be my final question before we open up to audience Q&A. And this is a question that I plan to ask for all my talks. Adrian's already heard this, but what advice would you give to everyone out there listening today who are very uncertain of what the future holds, even beyond this pandemic? It can relate to sustainability, environmental impact, or just any valuable insight that you can share. Bobby, if you want to start.
People that are concerned, it's a very trying and very worrisome time right now. As a species, though, we've been through so much worse. On personal levels, we've all been through so much worse. I think this is a time for our species to really come together like never before. I don't think, I mean, since probably the last pandemic of 1918, I don't think our planet has ever went through the same problem together at the same time and have ever had a really a good reason to not think of ourselves as Americans or Europeans or South Americans, you know, thinking of ourselves as humans, not Democrats, not Republicans, but as humans that need to come together to fix this problem and to make sure that this type of problem doesn't happen again. And if it does, that we're actually prepared for it. And to really think about the way that our actions have caused something like this to happen and how our actions will continue to cause things like this to happen. It will continue to melt the permafrost in Siberia, and viruses will continue to be exposed to us that we've never been exposed to before. So I think that people, although this is not a positive experience, I think that the outcome has a huge potential to be positive. Everything happens for a reason. We needed to get our carbon check. We needed to get our air pollution down. I think this was a really good wake-up call for the whole planet and our entire species to realize we need to do something. So it's gonna be okay. It'll work out. You know, our species, we're like the cockroaches of our planet. You know, we will always survive. You know, we've done this to ourselves and we need to find creative ways to get ourselves out of it. And again, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to come together as a species and quit fighting and just make things happen.
Sarah?
I mean, same. I mean, agree with all of that. I think, you know, you don't want to let this crisis go to waste. And I think it has been, you know, incredible that we've all band together as humans. And, you know, today's crisis is saving lives. You know, certainly tomorrow's is going to be saving the planet. And I think, you know, the coronavirus has shown how each of us, just by staying home, right, all at one time, can actually create really fast, impactful change. And I think the same, you know, same goes, you know, turning our eyes back to climate change, you know, keeping our eyes on it now, but certainly after this passes. And I think, you know, like Bobby mentioned, you know, COVID certainly has shown that, like Adrian's been saying, you know, our health is the health of the planet. And, you know, COVID's certainly shown that. But with plastic pollution as well, you know, I think that's another one where I think it's easy for people to think of trash being like, you know, it's out of our homes, it's out of sight, out of mind. But, you know, there's so much research coming out now, and the things that, you know, really was impetus for starting Blueland, where like, no, it's not out of sight, out of mind. It's, you know, it's in our drinking water. It's in a third of the fish we eat. I heard a stat, like we eat a credit card's worth of plastic every week. You know, our health is the health of the planet. And I think hopefully, you know, this experience is another one that is helping people realize the interconnectedness of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say your strength, longevity, and resilience is directly related to how much you can embrace ambiguity and uncertainty. You know, in any system, when you have routine, it starts to atrophy because it doesn't have anything to push up against. It doesn't have to learn and continue to be turned on and available for what might come. So if all of this uncertainty is really is a challenge, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it'll prepare us for what's possible next. And I would say this is the part of the lesson as well. Always allow yourself to take the time to look at things that might be uncertain, and develop those skills to be able to address any circumstance as it arises. Because look, we can't predict the future. Absolutely. I mean, some weathermen may think they can predict the weather, but you know, and at least my app is always wrong. So I think it's a fallacy to think that somehow that we know exactly what's going to happen at any given moment. And that's a spiritual opportunity as well, is to look at the whole picture, the big picture, beyond the certainty of whatever your ego wants to hold on to, and just embrace and know that we are part of a system that will ultimately thrive if we give to it with our hearts and with our values, our true values, not just with the ego or wanting to control. And we've been trying to control the environment from the beginning of our of our existence as a species, to pouring concrete over everything, and fishing all the fish out of the we have technologies that have exponential potential to exploit nature. And so we have this supposed dominion over natural realities, but this COVID thing is showing us that no, we actually don't. So if we don't get in harmony with, if we're not rolling with it, we're gonna break. So uncertainty is not such a bad thing.
Well, thank you guys for answering all my questions and sharing your insight. We'll move to audience Q&A. The way this will work is that if you want to ask Adrian, Sarah, or Bobby a question directly, just use the raise hand feature on Zoom and I will unmute you. If not, you can feel free to send your question through chat. And we actually already have a question in the chat. To all of you, could you please talk a little bit about applying the power of storytelling to create tangible and sustainable change?
I mean, for me, I think it goes to visibility. On Queer Eye, I always try to make sure that when I can, it doesn't always make the cut because we only have a 43-minute show where we shoot 80 hours of footage, but I always try to make sure I use multiple moments with our hero to talk about the environment and how literally small changes that you can do every day. Going back to my point of, it's one water bottle a day. Well, if everybody in America, all 300, 400 million people every day was just like, it's just a water bottle. That's a lot of water bottles. So being able to tell a story and giving the example of your own life and the way you think and the way you do, it's really able to help people to relate and think about that the next time they go to use that plastic that they don't need to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are storytelling animals. That's one of our core competencies, is to be able to create narratives, and that's how we communicate with one another. That's how we envision our futures. So it's very important. And I'd say, what's the most important story than the story of our humanity and our civilization? Like, what story are we going to tell? I actually find that investing and working with businesses is one of my favorite forms of storytelling, because helping to support the businesses that are story points along the narrative of our humanity is really interesting, because we're actually literally building our history with all of our actions and all the little moments in this story.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, as a brand, I mean, we think that it's so important. It's such a powerful way to bring this big, sort of scary problem that can feel very also distant, and make it personal and make it relatable for people. So even with our brand, we love Instagram. Feel very lucky for that the platform exists today. But we try to get as personal as we can with that. As much sort of behind the scenes with our team, and just also just being honest. You know, we do a lot of celebrating progress over perfection. I think especially in the eco space, there can be a lot of pressure to be perfect, and it's really hard. It's really hard, or it's expensive, and it's not always accessible to do like the best, most perfect thing for the planet. And I think just showing that, you know, we're also a team that are all just humans and trying our best is an important message to get out there, really celebrating, you know, those small wins and those small steps versus, you know, inducing guilt for not being perfect.
Yeah, it's also that also goes to the uncertainty component as well, and there's no room for infighting amongst us environmentalists or people who want to see change. You know, the establishment, the companies that are doing the worst for the planet are benefited when we fight amongst ourselves for you know, perfection or for an ideal, and we have to give ourselves a break, because what we're trying to do is going to require all of our participation and collaboration and cooperation. So I agree. Like, let's hold each other accountable, but let's also give each other a break, because not any one of us can hold the weight of the world on our shoulders. Not one of us has the panacea, the absolute answer. It's together that we can actually make that change.
From Jackie, what is your advice for living in rural America and trying to be sustainable around stores and populations that do not support this lifestyle?
Online.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, you know, growing up in middle of nowhere, Missouri, I completely get what you're talking about. It is sadly not really on the forefront of anyone's mind. You know, the great thing about Blueland is, yes, a lot of people are like, oh, well, if I'm ordering online, it's shipping and it's creating, you know, greenhouse gases. Yes, but the fact that they've been able to reduce the size of their tablets so small that the carbon footprint that it's leaving by shipping it is way smaller than it would be for you to go out there and buy products that are unenvironmentally friendly and are, you know, using way too many single-use plastics. So really utilize online. You know, that's our gateway to the world right now, and I mean, not just right now, but forever. So don't just, you know, the more that you don't give those other type of companies your money, you don't go out there and buy that big thing of Tide just because that's the only thing available at your local store. You know, every time you buy that, you're telling them, it's okay, keep making this, it's fine, we're going to keep buying it. You know, I want to be more environmentally friendly, but this is the only thing I have access to, so I'm just going to keep buying it. No, put them on check, put them on notice that, no, I'm not going to keep buying this. I'm going to go online and I'm going to find companies who really are doing their part, who aren't just worried about making a dollar, they're worried about making the world a better place.
That's right.
I know, definitely. I mean, in more rural communities, food is probably a harder one if you don't have access to bulk bins or farmers market. You know, it's really hard to avoid the packaged foods. I think for me during this time, it's been an interesting time to challenge ourselves. I live in a tiny New York City apartment, to, you know, grow our own food and start trying to do some of that. And I think, you know, whether it's that or even trying to figure out how to make products like yogurt or oat milk that we typically buy that are sort of easier to make. I think there's also just a range of things. I think you'd be surprised how many good for the planet things that you can do that don't even require going out and buying anything new, whether it's, you know, a tip that people like a lot is if you're contact lenses, or for a lot of products that come in packaging that are typically aren't recyclable. Curbside, TerraCycle is a great company that offers, you know, recycling for a lot of these harder to recycle products, and, you know, so a lot of these products are completely free and sponsored by big companies. And so, you know, I collect my contact lens blister packs, and I get a big box, and I actually drop it off locally, but, you know, you can get a free shipping label online, or, you know, whether it's, you know, looking at your junk mail. And, you know, the other day I was looking at my junk mail and thinking like, wow, this is really terrible. All these people sending me mail that I'm not requesting. And a simple Google search revealed that there's like a website, catalogchoice.org, where you could actually opt out of a lot of junk mail, which is great. So I do think that there's, you know, a surprising number of steps that you can take that, you know, don't necessarily require, you know, buying new or better products.
Yeah.
Sarah, I'm going to keep the spotlight on you. Someone is asking, what were the biggest challenges in growing this business? I think they're referring to Blueland. For someone who didn't necessarily have a background in consumer products, how did you get started in creating the product and getting it out there in the market? And then just to add on to that, Adrian and Bobby, if you guys want to kind of just piggyback giving some general advice for startups or people that are looking to start a business, I think that would also be appreciated.
Yeah, so many challenges. It was a long journey. You know, it continues to be a journey. I think, you know, when we came up with the idea for Blueland, like, oh yeah, we should make this product a tablet. Like, why are we shipping around all this water and we're gonna package that tablet in paper? It sounded like a good idea, and you know, we didn't fully digest how the fact that it's never been done before probably meant that it was actually extremely difficult. But you know, I think it's, you know, just like my dad would say, like, you know, how do you eat an elephant? Sort of just one bite at a time. And just with everything, we just kind of broke it down into like, you know, what is the next step that we need to do? But certainly, like at the very beginning, when Blueland was just an idea, it felt like an impossible, like truly impossible thing to tackle. We're not scientists, we're not chemists. We had no manufacturing background. You know, at first I was just Googling, you know, cleaning products manufacturers, and my co-founder John and I we were just calling these manufacturers asking if they could make these products as tablets, and you know, they thought we were crazy. They're like, all the ingredients come as liquid. We don't even have tablet machinery. Don't you know we just make liquid products? And I'm like, okay, we just thought we'd ask the question. And pretty much everyone's like, you need to find your own chemist. You need to come to us with a formulation. Like, great. How are we going to find a chemist? We had, you know, no chemists in our network. And so literally at that point, I mean, there's no playbook for these things. And at that point, we just went on LinkedIn and literally started looking for chemists and messaging, like cold messaging in to chemists. And that's how we found our head of R&D, Syed, who is like he is so good. He was the director of formulation at Method at the time, and Method is one of the largest non-toxic cleaning brands in the world. And you know, even that, like, you know, we were like, how are we going to convince this guy who has this extremely senior position at this massive company to come help us create this tablet? We're pretty much going to him and saying, we have this idea and we need you to leave your big job and make it for us. But you just have to be tenacious. You just have to believe in what you're doing. Made up lots of sort of fake reasons why, like, we needed to be in SF to see him, like we were in town for other things, just so that we could get in front of him in person, and you know, just built that relationship, and you know, eventually convinced him and many others to come on board with us. But you know, certainly a long journey with, you know, plenty of setbacks and challenges, but obviously, you know, incredible highs and lots of wins and exciting things.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel you, girl. I feel you.
Crazy.
You know, I look at it, you know, like exercise, tear repair. When you go out and you pump iron or you lift weights, you're literally tearing little micro tears into your muscles, and then they repair, and that's how you get stronger. So it's like all those little obstacles and failures that you have to go through in order to grow and to actually get, you know, achieve your goal. So don't be afraid of the hurt. I mean, actually, you know what? I have right here, just coincidentally, this is a company I started. There's a beer company that failed. So I feel the pain. I feel it.
You know, people often think of failure as a negative thing. It's not. My entire life has been failing upwards, my whole career. You know, so a failure isn't a no. A failure isn't a stop. A failure is rethinking. You know, don't let anyone tell you no. My team always says that they're going to have "will not take no" for an answer carved into my tombstone, because no is, it's not a word in my vocabulary. No is just a, okay, well, what about this? Or what about if we do it this way? So if you run into failures in the beginning, don't look at them as failures. They're just lessons. They're lessons on how to ultimately make your company better and make your company succeed.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think we have time for one final question. For this one, I will unmute the person. Neil, if you want to ask your question directly.
Sure, thank you. For, I guess, Sarah and Adrian, can you share a little bit about your experience funding Blueland? And then I guess, Adrian, I'm sort of on the investor side, but what are your sort of expectations when you're looking at opportunities? Obviously, you guys talked about, you know, the value is more than just, you know, growth and profit. So if you could maybe just give a little insight into sort of those discussions and relationships and sort of what was important for you guys making those decisions.
Yeah, you know, I think for us in the beginning, it was quite difficult. You know, the context being we were out fundraising probably about 2.5 years ago. And even back then, I just feel like even in the past year, right, you know, climate change and plastic pollution is certainly even more so in the forefront of the media and social media than it was then. And so it was hard. I think, you know, we got a lot of no's saying that, you know, people don't care about the environment. You know, people are selfish ultimately. Like this is, you know, a very niche positioning in a niche market to go after. And so, and, you know, after that round of feedback, we ended up actually completely restructuring our deck. Because at the end of the day, we are trying to get from A to B. Ultimately, our mission first and foremost for sure is the planet. But if we can't get from A to B and fulfill that, you know, without, and we had a, you know, a business that we did need some amount of capital investment upfront to manufacture our products. And so ended up just flipping it on its head and focusing so much more on how this solution was so much better for a world that's, again, increasingly driven by e-commerce, and had like plenty of charts up front that showed why we had a structural cost advantage that led to higher margins, because the shipping and fulfillment of our products were so much cheaper than, like, you know, it costs you what, $9 to ship a bottle of Windex from California to New York. That's crazy, you know, versus it costs us like less than $1 to ship, you know, our tablets. And so, you know, when we were finally positioning it in those terms, unfortunately, I think, you know, we definitely saw much more interest from the traditional investors. I think certainly today there are more sort of, you know, mission-driven investors that we're finding and discovering that really are focusing on like the double bottom line, but definitely early days, those were harder for us to find.
Yeah. So, and from a DuContra standpoint, we're in the early days of building this impact fund. So we're learning a lot, and really wanting to, you know, not only build an impact fund that helps entrepreneurs and new businesses thrive, but we also want to do something a little bit novel in transforming our relationship to money itself. You know, how do we cleanse some of those distortions of value that happens every time money is exchanged? And it's subtle, but I think important. You know, we've been conditioned for so long that money means something, that it has a certain we have a certain relationship to it. And I think we need to fundamentally change that to help unlock, you know, sort of more fluid opportunities to invest in things that might be higher risk, or things that may not readily on the surface seem like a good investment. Because sometimes the best investments, and particularly the investments that are going to change the world and the environment for the better, are the ones that require a lot more faith, a lot more investment, and a lot more support. So if you're looking at money as just a way to like get, you know, return, then I don't think you're really, you know, a good fit for DuContra. you know, because we're requiring our investors, we're requiring our team to put in a lot of extra work in really being able to identify and have a more intelligent approach to investment, a more emotionally intelligent, more spiritually intelligent approach to investment. A lot of times, you know, investors will just go to the line of least resistance and they'll invest in the war machine or oil or what have you, because it's just easy money and it's lazy investments. So we really want to inspire what it means to invest itself, and so that's our approach.
Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Sarah. And then finally, thank you, Bobby. So thank you guys for answering my questions, all the audience Q&A. Really quick, before we wrap up, I think we're doing a little bit of a giveaway. And the way
Let's play games.
So the giveaway is going to be structured as the following. Both Adrian, Sarah, and Bobby have 2 questions they're going to ask. The way you basically enter the giveaway is you obviously note these questions down, answer them, post a story on Instagram with the 6 answers, tagging both DuContra Ventures, Blueland, and Bobby. And then the first 5 people to do that, will be eligible for a starter kit. So Adrian, do you want to read out the first 2?
Yeah, okay. So again, we're going to ask the questions, write them down, then answer them in a post and tag all of us, Blueland, me, Bobby, DuContra, everybody. And then the first 5 to get all the right answers will win. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so the first question is, what has more value in the open market, a ton of steel or a ton of plastic? And I'm talking about monetary value. What costs more? And then what was the other question that I was asking? Which one?
Lonely Will.
Oh, yeah, it says, what frequency of language does the lonely whale speak?
Cool. Sarah?
So third question is, what did the UN General Assembly designate the name of this day, today? And fourth question, how many cleaning bottles did Blueland eliminate this past year? Yeah, it's actually our 1-year anniversary today, in the past 12 months.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Question
Bobby?
5, what species of mammal has the longest lifespan? And question 6, how much money of charitable, or what percentage of charitable donations goes to environmental causes?
Cool. Thank you guys so much. Once again, the first 5 people to get them right are eligible for the giveaway. And then for 3 of you, thank you guys so much for answering all my questions, all the audience Q&A. We really appreciate all the insight and just your time in general. Tomorrow will be the final part in our series where Adrian and I will be talking to the co-founder of Just Eggs. It'll be the same time, same link. Other than that, thank you guys so much once again. Stay safe, stay healthy, and happy Earth Day.
Hey, thanks everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.